Story 1. I accidentally knocked my mom's toothbrush into the toilet, fished it out, rinsed it off, and put it back on the counter. I was 14, definitely old enough to know better. Story 2. All my siblings are wildly successful except for me. My parents have good jobs and make great money. My sister is in medical school to be a doctor. She is the smartest person I know, and I'm so proud of her. My brother just became chief technology officer of the company he works for. He became best friends with the chief executive officer by chance, and it paid off big for him. I'm making $40,000 a year, skip meals because I'm poor, and am chronically late on all my bills, which ruined my credit score and has in turn made needing anything harder. I never had a credit card because I didn't qualify. I'm not going to lie, I actually don't hate my life. I'm grateful for the things I have and feel lucky that I'm not worse off. But my parents definitely see me as the family deadbeat. I need to rely on my parents for any financial upset that hits me, and it's getting exhausting. I do work hard, but working all the hours in the world doesn't matter when your base pay is terrible. Story 3. I woke up on a job site with a mouse sleeping on my chest under my shirt, sweater, and jacket on my skin. I killed it. It was just trying to stay warm. It didn't deserve death. I will never be okay with this. Story 4. I married a widower with children. It felt like such a sacred thing to take care of another woman's children after she passed. I really wanted to do a good job and make her proud, if that makes sense. But blending a family was much harder than I thought, and I feel like I completely failed at the job I set out to do. If I knew someone was taking care of my kids the way I was a stepmother to them, I would be disappointed. But I wasn't doing it on purpose. I was just in over my head and completely emotionally overwhelmed. I could not find my footing, no matter how hard I tried. The perception of failure made the situation worse. I never abused or hurt them. I was just disengaged. I've tried to be realistic and forgive myself and try to restore and open up relationships, but it feels like a wasted opportunity. I wanted so badly to be a good stepmom, and I'm absolutely heartbroken that I failed them and myself. My husband swears it's not as bad as I make it out to be, and that the kids don't hold anything against me, but I still feel ashamed of myself. Story 5. When I was a teenager, I sent nudes to strangers from the internet because I was being abused at home, and I had social anxiety and no self-esteem. Every day, I am terrified of those photos surfacing somewhere because one of those men might sell or post them. Don't send nudes, people. Story 6. Someone I knew died because she wouldn't take a transplant. It was the right call for her. I get that she was tired of everything, and it wouldn't have done her a lot of good. I was so incredibly angry at her. I felt so incredibly angry that she wouldn't fight. I knew it was selfish and wrong, but I just didn't want to lose her. And I was so incredibly angry. Story 7. Dating my exes. They are truly disgusting. I was so desperate. I used to be friends with the sketchiest people. I know part of it was because I'm silly, but really, I was desperate. I was such a loser. These people make me cringe so hard now. Story 8. Myself as a whole. Sure, I have crippling chronic pain and such, but all my life it's been hammered into me that I'm so smart. I can do anything, yet I'm a giant loser. I've done nothing, accomplished nothing, unless you count being severely underpaid and working insanely long hours. I haven't had a holiday in 6 years, just always working but struggling to afford food. Story 9. Tooth loss. Due to spending a significant portion of my life struggling with poverty, I had lost most of my teeth by the time I was 50. It was not from a lack of hygiene, just regular tooth decay that went untreated for too long. I never smile anymore. Story 10. Last Saturday, my husband had a work Christmas party, and I drank too much. I threw up in a booth at the after party in front of his boss and some other people. I don't know if I will mentally recover from it. Story 11. Also, the guy friend my boyfriend is jealous of because of our close friendship is gay. He's not out, but I know if I told my boyfriend, he'd keep it to himself and feel a lot better. But my boyfriend has so many close girlfriends, some of them his exes, that I'm insecure about. So when my guy friend moved back in town and we started hanging out, and the boyfriend voiced his concern or very poorly masked jealousy, there was a bit of schadenfreude. I'll definitely tell him soon. just not yet. Story 12. When I was in college, I owned a ball python. I studied a lot about them before I bought him because I take owning an animal very seriously and wanted to make sure I could provide him with a good environment. My roommate made it very clear that they didn't want dead mice or rats in the freezer or microwave, so I decided on live prey for his food, the snake, not the roommate. For those who don't know, pythons and other constrictors like to sit and digest for a bit after killing their prey. They feel vulnerable because they can't move as well when they have an entire rat in their stomach. One day I was in a hurry and didn't wait long enough, and he bit me. If you've ever seen that clip of Steve Irwin getting bit on TV, you know what you're supposed to do here. Remain calm. The snake will usually detach once it realizes you're not a threat. I did not do that. I panicked, shouted, yanked him out of the tank, and then panicked some more. I tried to get a pen under his jaw to free my hand, which just made him latch on tighter and honestly could have really hurt him. I eventually calmed down and let him detach on his own time, but the damage was done. Not to my hand. He'd latched on to the fleshy part of my palm, and he wasn't big enough to really dig deep. But after that day, he never let me pick him up again. Whenever my hand went into his tank, he'd coil up and act aggressively. I ended up having to use oven mitts to get him to his feeding enclosure. To be clear, this was all 100% my fault. I wasn't ignorant. I knew proper procedure, I ignored it, and as a result, did permanent damage to an innocent animal. I'd lost the trust of a pet that I loved because I was foolish. I was eventually able to rehome him to an animal rehab center that specialized in reptiles. The guy who ran it was understanding when I told him the story, and they were more than capable of taking care of him. I took comfort in that. I've never really forgiven myself for the incident. Too long. Didn't read. My ball python bit me because I was being foolish, then never let me touch him again. Story 13. Right now, my biggest shame is my debt and lack of a job. I decided to pursue a concept art degree at 30 in 2020. It seemed so viable at the time. The entertainment industry has declined since then between artificial intelligence, cost-cutting, bad companies doing terrible things, sexual assault allegations, and so on. I went through a lot during university in my personal life as well, including 2 close family deaths, and ended up completely messing up my final project, ending with a 2:2. I finished university with no job history in 10 years now, a poor grade on a worthless degree, back in May. I'm not even looking for a decent job, I'm just looking for minimum wage, but I'm just not getting anything. It's been so long now since my last student loan payment that I'm now roughly £2,500 in immediate debt, not even thinking about student loans. I feel absolutely ashamed of the fact that I chose such an unbelievably short-sighted and risky path, and that I couldn't even finish my easy degree in a decent enough way to get the 2:1 I'd need to get on a graduate job. Then I doubled down on the failure by not being careful enough with money and getting in debt by a further £1,500 in less than a year. Even being able to afford to fuel my car and cover my credit card bill long enough to get my first pay from a job is a real concern right now. My car insurance and tax come up in May, and I'm not sure how I'm going to work that one out either. I can't believe I had the opportunity to get a degree and I ended up here. Story 14. I stole a lot of money from my parents when I was a young teenager. I told them eventually, but it's just so wildly out of character for me now and still makes me feel gross. Story 15. I have lots of one-offs I'm ashamed of. But assuming you mean in general, for me it's my body. I lost 120 pounds. And before anybody is like, yay, go you, let me tell you, loose skin is no joke. It doesn't matter what I wear, what I do, how healthy I get, you'll always be able to look at me and know once upon a time, I was fat as fuck. No, it's not a reminder of how far I've come, a battle scar to be proud of, or any of the other bullshit you hear from weight loss circles. And I'm in the United States to add insult to injury. I'll never be able to get it removed. I'm giving serious consideration to gaining most of my weight back just so I won't have to deal with the rashes and stares anymore. Story 16. It was winter, and I was leaving an expensive massage a friend had gifted me because my husband was suicidal at the time, later diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was his primary caregiver. My friend wanted to treat me to something and let me get out of the house. I left the appointment at 8 p.m., and it was very cold and rainy. A woman who was unhoused walked by in a t-shirt and asked if I had any cash. I didn't because I almost never carry cash, so she kept walking in the rain in just this t-shirt. Immediately, I wished I could just give her my coat. I had gotten it at Salvation Army, and it was a nice, long coat, and she certainly needed it more than I did. I felt bad enough that I went to look for her but couldn't find her. I cried in the car on the way home because I felt so disappointed in myself. It definitely reminded me of how I want to be as a person because it felt like I basically betrayed myself. Story 17. I regret assaulting my ex. I genuinely don't know if she was manipulating. I don't think I ever will, but the night she told me was the first time I tried mushrooms after months of her telling me I should. Ironically, while she was on a break from sex, drugs, and alcohol. I had taken 7 grams, and she told me about an hour into it that I had repeatedly assaulted her while we were sleeping. I don't remember any of it. I don't know what I did wrong, and I don't know why she waited to tell me or came to my apartment night after night, week after week. It broke me for a bit. She stayed over that night, but it was the clear end to our situation. I didn't sleep until the next morning, didn't even cry because I wasn't sure how to respond. It took me a while to admit to myself that she was not only bad for me but also very manipulative, constantly telling me to abandon friends, and mentally unstable, constantly believing people were after her. So I still don't know if those mushrooms affected me in any way, but I don't think I'll be able to remove that memory. Story 18. My father died in a workplace accident when I was a child. There was a lawsuit and we received money from it. Mine was in a structured settlement that started when I was 25, paying out until I turned 65. I sold off the structured settlement and used the money for gambling and drugs. Story 19. My spending habits. I'm working through a bunch of credit card debt because I didn't care enough when I was in my 20s, so I'm working now to take the steps to wipe it away. Story 20. How dependent I am on others, especially my parents. I'm autistic and wasn't diagnosed until adulthood. After over 20 years of full-time masking and not knowing why I was struggling so hard to do things that my peers didn't have trouble with, I got hit head-on with intense burnout and a bad depressive episode and ended up moving back home. I'm so embarrassed to be 26 and still living with my parents, but I feel like I'm never going to get back the person I was before 2020 to 2021, and I'm ashamed of having failed in my attempts at independence. I don't want to have to be looked after my whole life, but I haven't done a good job of doing that for myself in the past, and I'm ashamed of that. Story 21. When I was a young man, I told a group of my friends that I had slept with a girl. I had not. She heard about it and was deeply hurt. I am ashamed that I am now a permanent part of the pattern of male abuses and indiscretions that she has had to carry throughout her life. Years ago, she sent me an email stating she wanted to never hear from me again. I want to apologize, but I think it is better to just respect her wishes. I definitely learned my lesson and used that experience as motivation to be the most honorable man I could be to the women in my life. It is unfortunate that she had to be the anvil upon which my ignorance was smashed. I hear so many stories from women about the ways they have been abused in their lives, and I am disgusted with myself knowing that I was the perpetrator of one such incident. Story 22. Overdosing in bed on OxyContin next to my girlfriend at the time. That same girlfriend is my wife now, and that was only a year after we started dating. To be honest, she shouldn't have stayed with me, but since she did, I think it was what made me able to get back to a purely pain-managing regimen and stop abusing them. That said, I still relapse sometimes. And each time she is right there with me, even when I lied about it. Honestly, the most stereotypical addict-type behavior that I put them through is what I am ashamed of. Story 23. I do not go to the dentist because I am really scared of them. I have problems and each day they get worse and worse. When I am doing my job, I need to smile a lot, so it would be bad to lose teeth. Even after psychological practice, I cannot go there. Fear, no money, no time. The strangest thing is that I really want to be healthy, but I do nothing to change it. Story 24. I have a variety of candles and sprays in my bathroom to immediately prevent or eliminate any olfactory evidence of my bowel movements, even when I'm home alone. I also don't like talking about or acknowledging that I do, as it feels strange to me, but it's deeply rooted. Story 25. I am 45, and work has become difficult for me. I grew up with authoritarian parents whose mandate was to work hard. I did so at home, at school, and at jobs. Sometimes it paid off, but a lot of times it did not, to the detriment of my mental health. I was just serving others and exhausting myself because they demanded it from me. Now, I work part-time, which is fine, but I will need a full-time job again. All I can see are the pathways I could take and all the drawbacks, and I'm so scared to try to the point of immobilization. It always seems to backfire, and I pay the price. At Christmas events this year, it's going to be hard because people know me as a strong worker, and now I'm not. The concern on family and friends' faces is becoming painful.